Hello, welcome to the State of Kotlin Multiplatform webinar. Special greetings to those of you who are watching us from user group are live today in several cities, Cairo, Cologne, Vilnius, Yerevan, Prague, Gdansk, Oslo, Berlin, and Braunschweig, and there will be many more in upcoming days as well. My name is Márton, and together with Svetlana here, we are both Kotlin developer advocates at JetBrains. In this webinar, we'll take a look at what's the state of Kotlin multiplatform today, and we will recap several exciting announcements that we've made in the last couple of weeks. So, Sveta, what is the state of Kotlin multiplatform?
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you here, especially those who are watching us live. That's a good question. What is the state of Kotlin multiplatform? Kotlin multiplatform is stable. That means it's production ready and you can start using it now. And probably at this point, we can really finish our webinar because it's like that's the most important piece of information for us today. Kotlin multiplatform is finally stable and we're really happy about it. But of course, no. Let's dig into more details, discussing what exactly it means, API stability, first of all, and all other improvements based very much on what you told us. It is, despite its being press stable, it was used in production by many companies, many people, and your feedback helped us to shape this technology. So let's see what we are discussing today. Kotlin multiplatform, especially for newcomers who probably just join us because they heard that this technology is now stable, we want to reiterate the basic features of the technology. What is it about? What's the most important about it? Then we'll discuss what comes in the stable release. Of course, we'll touch a framework which is used for sharing UI, Compose Multiplatform framework, which is based on Jetpack Compose for Android. Now you can use it for on more platforms. And also we'll cover recent announcements, cross-language IDE support for Kotlin multiplatform and Fleet, and our experiment for improving build-to-link user experience with Amber. And at the end of this webinar, so please stay with us. The most interesting part goes after the main part, the main presentation. This is Q&A with different people from the team, with our colleagues from different Kotlin sub-teams. And we will use Slider for moderating and for providing you the ability to vote for the questions. So you can either use this short link, or you can use it Slider.com via this code, or you can use this core code to find the link. By this link, you can ask your questions during the webinar or after the webinar, or even now, if you have something very important to ask us, please, you can do it even now. Questions will appear after some delay because there is a pre-moderation. And just based on our experience of using Slider, please don't be lost there in just voting for questions. Please pay some attention to us speaking, to the topics that we're covering. And after the webinar, we'll start first with the most important, most interesting questions. Based on your voting, based on what you find the most important. So let's start with the main content. What is Kotlin multiplatform? It's a technology developed by JetBrains used for flexible multi-platform development. The idea is that you can share code between platforms, like network models between a server and a client, or many things. You can share many things, almost the whole app between clients, especially between mobile clients. It is different from other cross-platform technologies and frameworks because typically you need to make a choice. You either use a cross-platform framework or you stay native with the native technologies provided by be it Android and iOS. But with Kotlin multiplatform, you don't have this choice. You can do both. You can combine cross-platform parts and native parts in your application. This technology is really flexible. You can use different code sharing strategies. You can share just a piece of logic. For instance, for a start, you can use a couple of functions. It's really good for gradual adoption in existing projects. You can share all application logic, or you now can also make your code base 100% Kotlin and share UI as well with Compose Multiplatform. How does it work? Let's consider the mobile use case, where you can have the maximal flexibility. Your app consists of three main parts. One is all your shared code cross-platform part written in Kotlin. Then you also have Android native part written in Kotlin and iOS part written probably in Swift. And different apps can have different percentages of this shared part of what percentage of your code base you would like to put in these shared parts. It might be several modules, it might be one module, it depends on your use case. Under the hood, such a Kotlin multi-platform module is compiled to platform binaries, which are used from native applications. For instance, for iOS, such a binary is packed into a framework, and then you use this framework like a regular dependency from the iOS application. Kotlin is interoperable with native ecosystems. It provides special language features, which let you use platform-specific APIs from Kotlin multi-platform modules. So, for instance, you can use Apple APIs from Kotlin multi-platform module to provide, for instance, platform-specific implementation of common interface. It all works. You can also use Kotlin multi-platform libraries, which hide the usages of native APIs and provide a common API written in Kotlin for you to use this common API in your code base. And we see that the amount of such libraries is steadily growing. But again, thanks to this flexibility, if library doesn't cover your specific use case, you can always implement it by hand accessing these native APIs. If you want to see the list of such libraries, a good resource is this GitHub KMP awesome page that lists different Kotlin multi-platform libraries that are available for different use cases, like logging, networking, storage, dependency injection, and so on. We see many successful stories of Kotlin multi-platform adoption from different companies. You can read these stories. You use this link. You can read these stories, for instance, to find inspiration for convincing your colleagues or management to use this technology. You can find there these stories mentioned some struggles people might have during the adoption period, different design choices they made, and also they usually list benefits they see after adopting this technology. So check the list. It has really lots of useful information. When we see the timeline, Kotlin multi-platform has been in development for a very long time, with many improvements over the years. Many projects, despite this pre-stable status, many projects were used in production, even in alpha and beta stages. And again, thanks to those who were using it, thanks to your feedback, this feedback helped to shape the current state of the technology. So now it's stable, and you can use it in production without doubts.
So, as we've just mentioned, there have been a lot of improvements to the Kotlin multi-platform technology over the years, and now it's easier than ever to get started with it. Next up, we'll take a look at some of these latest improvements that brought KMP to its stable status today. First, it's compatibility guarantees. Kotlin multi-platform consists of many different parts across the language, compiler, and all sorts of related tooling. KMP being stable means that all of these parts will now evolve following strict backwards compatibility guarantees, so you can know that things will not break in new releases, they will evolve in a backwards compatible way, and you can feel comfortable using Kotlin multi-platform in your production projects. If you want to learn more about these compatibility guarantees, you can go to the link that you can see on the slide now, which describes more about the stability of KMP and about Kotlin's different components in general. Now, there are some parts that are not quite stable yet, some more advanced parts of Kotlin multiplatform, and whenever you end up using these, you'll see that you'll have to explicitly opt into them. Take, for example, expect actual functions. These are stable, and the pattern that you can see here is a recommended way of using them. So expect actual functions allow you to have a common function declaration that you can call from your shared common Kotlin code, and then have platform-specific implementations that can use platform-specific APIs to implement the functionality. For example, here we create the getPlatform function, which is supposed to return a platform interface implementation. And you can see that both on Android and on iOS, we are creating different implementations of this using platform-specific APIs and then returning those implementations. Again, this is a recommended way of bridging out from common code into platform-specific parts, and it's fully stable. On the other hand, a more advanced variant of this is expect actual classes, which are more complicated and are still being worked on. Whenever you use these, you'll always see a clear warning indicating that they are not fully stable yet, and you'll have to opt in to their usage. Another thing that we've been working on is improving the build configuration experience to make it easier to get started with Kotlin multiplatform. Take, for example, source sets, which are the different directories that contain your Kotlin code targeting different platforms. Previously, even in common scenarios, it would take some work to configure these source sets. For example, for targeting iOS, you would have to create different source sets for the different architectures, and then you would usually want to have a shared source set which can cover all of these and set up dependencies between them and so on. Now, as of Kotlin 1.9.20, you no longer have to do this. You can simply declare the targets that you need, and the source set configuration will be done for you automatically. The way that this works is that we are using something called the default hierarchy template, most of which we have some parts cut, but most of which you can see on the slide here. So as you are declaring your platforms in your build configuration, those platforms will be selected in this hierarchy template, and all of the intermediate source sets that you can see represented here will be created for you automatically, as well as all of the configuration and dependencies between them. This means that you no longer need to create these source sets and set up dependencies, and we also now offer completion for accessing these source sets. So as you try something such as accessing one of the existing source sets from the hierarchy, you no longer need to use the getting, creating APIs. You can simply type in the name of the source set, get typed code completion, and then you can really easily set up things like dependencies for the various platforms that you are targeting.
Another extremely important work in the latest release relates to performance improvements, both for the build phase and for the generated code that gets into the final binary. So, for example, there are 4 features that I want to highlight. Gradual configuration cache support is the gradual feature that allows you to speed up the build process by reusing the results of the configuration phase. It's the phase that creates the task graph in the following builds. And now gradual configuration cache is fully supported in Kotlin multiplatform projects. Another feature that the team has been working on is connected with incremental compilation of KLib artifacts. When Kotlin native source code is compiled to native binaries, when we're talking about native platforms, the compilation goes through the intermediate phase. So first, Kotlin native code is compiled to KLib artifacts, and then they are compiled to native binaries. And with this experimental feature, when the incremental compilation feature enabled, KLib artifacts can be partially recompiled into binaries depending on the exact changes. Another feature is a new custom memory allocator, which improves the performance of the Kotlin native memory manager. If you tried this technology several years ago, when with the old obsolete Kotlin native memory manager, you might remember that it was not really straightforward. you need to freeze objects, so for instance, to pass to another thread. Now, based on your feedback, most of all, that all fixed, and now Kotlin native memory gets more and more further improvements. And lastly, having Kotlin native compiler cache management in the compiler allows even further improvements to compilation time. I won't go into these features in detail. We covered them in different extra videos and the release materials. You can, for instance, go to what's new in Kotlin 1.9.20 documentation page and see these features explained in detail. I just wanted to highlight that the team made a lot of work related to performance improvement, and as we consider it, it's really important for you, for the overall experience. So you may say, okay, I'm convinced. How to start? Another thing that we've been working on for the stable release is new documentation portal. It contains detailed documentation about the technology, getting started guides, different tutorials for such aspects like testing, publishing, or choosing project configuration. So whatever you find important when you're working with Kotlin Multiplatform. And of course, it has links to sample apps, which you can browse and see how to build applications with the technology. Another thing I wanted to highlight here is Kotlin Swift Enteropedia. This is materials on the current state of Kotlin Swift Interop. It is a GitHub project that covers different aspects of this interoperability, such as how functions, classes work, and so on. It is based on the community project. So you can see it is initially forked from another repository created by the community a couple of years ago. And we are really grateful for the work they've done there. Now we translated it and updated it to the latest versions. So when we're talking about how the current way, how it works, how Kotlin API looks from Swift. So remember, you have this Kotlin multi-platform module, and you can use it from your iOS applications. So you can use Kotlin APIs from Swift. And currently it works through an Objective-C bridge. All the basic things work. So you can call functions, use classes, and so on. There are different constraints with more advanced features, like enum, sealed classes, default arguments, coroutines, and so on. And there are also different community libraries, such as Sky and KMP native coroutines, that improve this interoperability. The last webinar in this series of webinars will cover this topic in detail. The only thing I wanted to mention here is that in the future, we want to provide direct Kotlin to Swift interoperability without this Objective-C bridge, and making common Kotlin API look natural when used from Swift. The work is already started there is no prototype yet. Stay tuned, and we'll let you know when you can try something out. So let's go back and highlight what we already have now. Kotlin multi-platform technology is now stable, which gives you strict compatibility guarantees, easier configuration, faster builds, better runtime performance, and new documentation portal to learn about this technology. And on top of that, we have more plans on how to improve the technology further. But now let's move on to the next topic about a framework allowing you to share UI.
Yes, so Compose Multiplatform is a multi-platform UI framework by JetBrains, which extends Google's Jetpack Compose toolkit that was built for Android. Compose Multiplatform complements the code sharing story in Kotlin Multiplatform by letting you share not just business logic and other parts of your app, but also the UI layer of the application across different platforms. Just like with Kotlin Multiplatform, Compose Multiplatform is optional, and you can choose, if you want to use it, how much of it you're going to use. So you can choose to use you can choose to use Compose Multiplatform, screen by screen, component by component, interoperating with native UI implementation on the platforms. If you've used Jetpack Compose for Android before, you will definitely feel at home with Compose Multiplatform, as they look almost identical in terms of API. They use composable functions that take data that they transform into UI. They use layouts like columns, rows, lazy layouts, and they have things like modifiers for customization. The only major difference from the user experience point of view is that this code can now live in your common source set and compile for multiple platforms. Speaking of those platforms, here are the currently supported platforms for Compose Multiplatform. As you can see, iOS support is currently in alpha. We have announced that earlier this year. On Android, Compose Multiplatform is Jetpack Compose, so that's of course stable. Also stable is desktop support in Compose. So Windows, macOS, and Linux desktop apps can already be created using Compose Multiplatform, and this is stable. In fact, if you're using JetBrains Toolbox, that's an application that uses Compose for desktop. And finally, we also have experimental support for the web. Next up, I want to highlight some recent improvements that we've made in Compose Multiplatform releases. So in 1.5, we've added dialogues and pop-ups across all of the supported platforms. We've added APIs for supporting window insets, which allow you to handle things like status and navigation bars on the screen and draw content under them if you want to, as you can see on the screenshots here. We've improved scrolling on iOS to have a more native, natural feeling and behavior. We've added support for high refresh rate screens, and we have shipped a stabilized test framework for desktop. Then in 1.5.10, which is the current version of Compose Multiplatform, we have now matched all of the Jetpack Compose Material 3 components so that they are all available for multi-platform as well, including some new components like bottom sheets, search bars, and drop-down menus. We have further improved text fields for iOS by making sure that double, triple taps are handled nicely, as well as deleting large amounts of text from a text field. And we have made significant technical improvements as well. For example, enabled compiler caching, which means that you will now have faster incremental builds as you're working on your UI. Finally, we also now have basic K2 support so that if you're testing the new K2 compiler, you can now do that in your Compose projects as well. If you want to try Compose Multiplatform, you should head to the landing page at jb.gg/compose, where you can learn more about it and find all of the resources that you'll need to get started. Speaking of getting started,
now there is a new way to create a Kotlin multiplatform project, which is a Kotlin multiplatform wizard. You can open it following this link, and you can choose the platforms you want to target, and for instance, whether you want to share UI or not. This is a web-based wizard, and it provides the latest state and versions independent of the IDE release cycles. After you generated the project, you can open it inside the IDE of your choice. And there's a question, what choice do you currently have? You can open and work with the project in Android Studio or in LJ. But if you open it, for instance, in Android Studio, it's like Kotlin code looks like Kotlin code. You can do whatever you can do in IntelliJ there. But if you use Swift in your project, Swift code looks like a text file, and nothing cross-language is available for you. So it's not that convenient. And now you have another option, which is to use Fleet. Fleet is a new polyglot IDE by JetBrains, and there Swift code looks like Swift code, not like unsupported text files. So now let's talk more about our recent announcement about Fleet with Kotlin multiplatform support. Important to say, it is currently in preview. So it's not stable yet. This was a recent announcement. This was something in active development, and Fleet itself is not stable. So it's the whole Fleet in preview, and Kotlin multiplatform support is as well. It is the next generation IDE by JetBrains. You can use it as a lightweight editor for just simple things to do in your code, or also in a smart mode, which is under the hood powered by IntelliJ Code Engine. And this smart mode provides you this functionality like completion, navigation, refactorings, and all other smart IDE features. And this IntelliJ functionality, which is built during many years inside JetBrains and loved by many people, is powering Fleet since the core code engine is based on IntelliJ. So it's not like we're throwing away something and building Fleet from scratch. No, it's not the case. Fleet, the smart mode under the hood uses IntelliJ engine. Fleet is designed to be collaborative and distributed. For example, you can host a session in Fleet on your machine, let others join you, and have pair programming sessions in the same shared project. So it's really, you can just edit the code from others, from machine by others. So it's like Márton shares a session with me, and I can edit the code on the Márton machine and run it and see how it works. So I can even run an Android emulator in this mode. And I want to mention here that our Kotlin advocates, Sebastian Agner and Márton, which were with whom we're presenting today, they have the Twitch stream when they actually show how it works in real life. So if you're interested, or if you're a Twitch user, you can check it out. There are some proofs that it really works. This pair programming works with Fleet, which is amazing. Fleet is polyglot, which means it supports many languages. But the most interesting thing for us here is that it supports Kotlin and Swift, of course. By the way, there is this table that specifies which features of which languages are supported. Of course, it's too detailed right now, but you can find it in the website and the documentation. And Kotlin support is pretty good there, since Fleet itself is developed in Kotlin. But back to our Kotlin multi-platform needs. So the core thing is it's not only supporting both languages, but it provides cross-language support between them, like features like navigation, refactorings, debugging. Let's look at a small demo of this support. So here I'm using this KMP JetBrains generated project. Say that, okay, I want a Swift UI to actually show you the interop between Kotlin and Swift, because if it's Compose Multiplatform, it's all Kotlin, so it's not there is not that many interoperability between languages. So here I generate this project. It consists of 3 parts: Compose, app, iOS app, and shared part. And the open shared part, if you already used some of our wizards, you know, probably you're familiar with this code. It generates interface and a function that returns you an instance of this interface, and it is implemented in Kotlin for Android and for iOS. But so far, it's all good. It's all in Kotlin, so it's nothing super interesting here. But when we go to the greeting class, we have this greet function, which is used in this common Kotlin function, which is used from 2 apps, from Android app and from iOS app. So here you can see that this code is implemented. This is Android code that is implemented in Compose. Oops. So it's you see here, greeting text, and we call this greet function, and this part is implemented in Swift. We see Swift UI, we import our shared module, and from Swift UI, content view, wherever we call again also this greet function. And I can say, okay, I want to call this function say hello instead of greet, and I can now check that it is indeed renamed, and it is renamed both in Kotlin and in Swift usages. So this is, I would say, the main power. And I can open Swift code. I can navigate from it and back. I can enjoy editing Swift code in parallel with Kotlin code, which is something that many people asked for. To be fair, okay, I want to show one more thing. This is the project that soon will be also available in the wizard. This is a template project that shows how we use the technology, a bit more complicated than just hello world. And here I want to show how that I can run both apps, both emulators. Most importantly, there is iOS app here, and voila, it works. It shows you this template project where you can click on something and there is this information. It is based on the collection of Museum of Arts. You can browse this project, see how it's implemented, and learn about the technology and conveniently work with this project inside one IDE. By the way, now this Kotlin Swift interpreter repository that I mentioned, that also, even if you are not using Fleet for your main development right now, it's still very beneficial to learn about Kotlin Swift interoperability inside Fleet because of this direct navigation, and you can always say, okay, this Swift function calls this Kotlin function. It's so much more convenient than before. Okay, summing it up. Fleet is a next generation IDE by JetBrains. It's a polyglot IDE which supports both Kotlin and Swift, but for us the most important part is, of course, that it provides cross-language support, cross-language IDE features for these two languages. Fleet is free during a public preview, and pricing details are yet unknown. They will come later. You might ask, what happens to IntelliJ and the Enter Studio? Nothing changes. We are fully committed. IntelliJ IDEA is a JVM platform which doesn't support Swift in any way. And we hope to provide the best IDE experience for Kotlin multi-platform users with this new IDE with Fleet. So that's all I wanted to share about Fleet. And we are going next to the next topic, which is Ember.
Yes, so Emper is the last piece of tooling that we've announced recently, and it's an experimental project configuration tool. We, of course, hear a lot of feedback from adopters of Kotlin that build configuration is challenging whenever you need to add new modules, new dependencies to your application. Then doing that takes away valuable time that you could be spending on actually developing your project. So Emper will aim to improve the user experience and the toolability of project configuration. Let's take a look at Emper in action. Here's what a basic command line JVM apps configuration looks like in Emper, which is just a single line. As you can see, this module definition file currently uses YAML, which is a simple, readable format that allows us to quickly experiment and iterate on Emper's syntax and features. Note that this is not a final language choice. We are actively collecting feedback here, which we are definitely getting a lot of related to YAML, and we will be revisiting this language choice later with the help of your feedback. Getting back to our JVM app, so this is the module configuration, which is just this single file, and let's see the rest of the application. So we would have source and test folders right there in the root of the project, where we could have source and test Kotlin files respectively. And this is essentially all we need for a basic Emper setup, except we also need a settings gradle.kts file because Emper is implemented as a Gradle plugin. Again, the goal for us at the moment is to experiment and validate the user experience that we're trying to provide with Emper, which is why we have chosen to build it on a well-tested build tool such as Gradle and providing a configuration layer on top of it. Now, once you import the project, for example, by turning on Smart Mode in Fleet, you will, of course, still see all of the regular Gradle-related files appear after this, such as all of the files that are part of the Gradle wrapper. Now, that's a basic JVM app, but today we're here for multi-platform. So let's see what that looks like using Emper. here's a module file, which instead of declaring a runnable app, declares a library module in Emper. And it's going to target a bunch of different platforms. We have a multi-platform library declared here for JVM, Android, and iOS targets. Then we can add dependencies. We have a dependencies section here, which will list the things that all of these platforms will receive as a common dependency. The $ notation here shows us that we are pulling in 2 dependencies from the Compose Multiplatform version catalog. And we are using exported, which means that whoever is consuming this library module will also have access to these dependencies. Going further, we can also add platform-specific dependencies. For example, we can have a dependencies at Android section in our module configuration, which can include things like Activity Compose and App Compat for the Android part. And then finally, I want to mention the settings section here, which... Okay, sorry, I was stuck with the paging. So I want to mention the settings section here, which allows us to configure toolchains like language, JDK, and SDK versions. You can see an example of tooling here in action as well that we can use to set up various things. But in our case, all that we really need is to enable Compose if we want to put some shared Compose code in here. And we can also do that here right within the settings section. Now, let's take a look at the rest of the project for multi-platform, what a project setup can look like with Emper. So here our module definition would be part of a shared module. And as you can see, this has a source folder, a regular SRC folder that contains the common Kotlin code. And if we need anything platform-specific, like actual implementations for functions, those would go into the platform-specific source folders that you can see within the shared module. We also have 3 different app modules here, which will define applications that consume this shared multi-platform library. Let's take a look at just one of them. So, for example, the Android app module contains an application which is also defined as an Emper module. You can see that our product in this case is going to be an Android app. It will depend on the shared multi-platform library, which contains the shared part of our application. And again, we have Compose enabled here. You can also see that we have a source folder directly within this module. And for a very minimal Android application, all we need to add here is the Android manifest and a main activity as the entry point. So Emper's current use case is Kotlin multiplatform, as you've seen on the previous slides, which means that it supports Kotlin, Java, and Swift, but it could also support more languages in theory in the future. Emper offers interop with Gradle. Again, it's implemented as a Gradle plugin, and Gradle interop means that you can mix and match Gradle and Emper modules within the same project so that you can try it easier in your existing projects if you want to. And we can also interop with Gradle to provide the ability to pull in Gradle plugins and provide custom options to those, even if your module is otherwise defined using an Emper module file. And finally, as you've just seen here, we of course offer tooling for Emper in IntelliJ IDEA as well as in Fleet. Now, if you want to check out Emper and try it for yourself, the best place to go is its GitHub repository, which contains detailed documentation as well as a lot of different sample projects that you can open in IntelliJ or Fleet and play with and experiment. And of course, we would love to hear your feedback on Emper, which we have a lot of different channels for. You can join the Emper channel on the Kotlin Lang Slack workspace. You can file issues you encounter on UTrack, or we also have a feedback form that you can fill out. And with that, we are going to sub up the slides part of this webinar, but don't leave yet because we have a Q&A coming right afterwards.
Yeah, so let's sum it up. Kotlin multiplatform is now stable and production ready. The technology allows you to share code, working together with native code. And you can choose exactly how much you want to share. It's really flexible. Compose Multiplatform is a framework to share UI. It allows you to extend your solution with also sharing UI. Fleet now supports Kotlin multiplatform development, so you can work both with Kotlin and Swift in a single IDE with cross-language features. It's currently in preview, and we are really looking for your feedback. Amber is another experiment, is experiment in build configuration. It is super early, so it's like we really hope for your feedback in whether it helps to improve your build setup experience and whether you actually it helps to understand what's what's going on and how to set up your project. I want to mention two links about our future plans. One is Kotlin roadmap that is regularly published on the Kotlin website, so it's regularly updated. And another one, it is blog post published recently about Kotlin Multiplatform, specifically roadmap, which covers such areas as Compose Multiplatform, tooling, core technology, and the thing that we haven't discussed today but is still important to us, which is library ecosystem, improving the experience of library authors, because to grow even more the ecosystem. This webinar is the first in a series of webinars. So you can check the next one, how to start with the technology in general, highlighting different aspects. Then will be the one devoted to Compose Multiplatform. And the last one focuses on iOS experience. So it's like it covers this Kotlin Swift interop, current state and details, as well as some other areas such as project configurations. Using this moment, I want to remind everyone that we have Kotlin Conf next year, and I really hope to see you all there. And currently, CFP is open, and especially if you already tried this technology and you have an interesting story to share, please share it with us. Please go and submit your talk about how you adopted the technology, what challenges you have, what benefits you got, and any other areas which you find interesting to share. Yeah, please don't forget to submit your talks. You might become a speaker at Kotlin Conf and even not. Hope to see you there. So now we are done with the main presentation part. So I want to welcome our colleagues because we are ready to start Q&A. I will remind you the link, the short link, or I'll just open the Slido, and we're ready to start. So give me some time. No, we are exiting slideshow and opening Slido. Okay, so we probably need to introduce our guests. Or you already read all the description. So we have with us, from the order I see us, Anton McCabe, Amper project lead. Hi, Anton. We have Nastya Kapanina, product manager for Kotlin Multiplatform. We have Dima Savinov. Dima actually is possible one of the people who actually developed this technology to this stable release. So if you have any questions like how hard was it to reach this state, Dima is the right person to ask this. Florian is responsible for tooling in Fleet. So all this nice stuff about Kotlin Kotlin Swift interoperability, Florian's team is building. Hi, Florian. And of course, we have Yegor, who is now Kotlin project lead. Yegor can answer all our questions. It's like, what's the future of Kotlin? We'll delegate it to Yegor. So I think that we can probably start. Márton, do you want to read the first question?
Oh, sure. I'm very happy to read this one. This is easy. It's not a question, but a statement, which says Kotlin Multiplatform is an awesome technology. I don't know if anyone has comments on this, but we're definitely happy to see it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, we're really happy to see it. So we mark it as answered. And then we have the one voted by many people. So Kotlin, tricky one. Kotlin Multiplatform is stable and production ready. One thing that bothers Flash is that its official recommended IDE Fleet is only it's in its early stages as public preview, and I guess they can't use it for production. What are your thoughts on this? Nastya, Florian, Igor, who wants to say something?
I can jump in. As Sveta mentioned in her presentation, besides Fleet, we are also supporting Kotlin Multiplatform and IntelliJ IDEA and Android Studio, and Kotlin Multiplatform support is rather stable there, and we are committed to supporting these IDEas further. What Fleet provides is an enhanced Kotlin Multiplatform experience in IDEA, and we are committed to making it stable so also as soon as possible, but in the meantime, you can also use our Kotlin IDEs, Android Studio and IntelliJ. Don't let the IDE choice keep you from trying out Kotlin Multiplatform.
Can I add? You can actually use both at the same time. So you can use Android Studio, Xcode, and if you want this interop support, you open Fleet, do some stuff there, and then return to more stable environment. So these options are also possible. So you have the full flexibility again.
Yeah, and sorry, as a product. Sorry, Florian, go ahead.
I was also gonna jump in and say, like, of course, we're also very interested in hearing feedback from you guys. We're trying to improve things at a rapid pace, trying to make it more usable. So anything you can tell us about what's blocking for you, what keeps you from using this in production is very much appreciated. And we're working hard to get this to the stage where you have a great experience.
So our main thoughts, all is good. So we probably can go to the next question. Here is Márton.
So when and why should I, anonymous, choose Compose Multiplatform so Compose Multiplatform and Kotlin Multiplatform over Flutter?
Tough one. Who wants to?
You're addressing this.
Personally, and I suggest folks to jump in and say their reasons to use Kotlin Multiplatform over Flutter. If I had a project, which I have, by the way, we all have pet projects in Kotlin team, I would use Kotlin Multiplatform over Flutter if I had some kind of Kotlin code already lined up. For example, if I had an Android project or if I had some kind of backend, and if native interoperability mattered to me. For example, if I would be using some kind of Bluetooth camera, I don't know, platform heavy stuff. But that's just my opinion, and dear anonymous user, your situation might be unique. So I suggest to other folks to jump in and say their main reasons to use Kotlin Multiplatform.
I can jump in. I can suggest 2 reasons. The first one is when you already have a team of engineers who know Kotlin, who know Jetpack Compose, and you want to, come up with some cross-platform app. Well, it's a technology of choice for you because you already have all the skills that you need. Another one is, for example, when you already have an existing project with Android, iOS, maybe desktop or backend parts, and you want to share at least some part of it, making it a safe choice for business. Kotlin Multiplatform allows you to just take one, even a very tiny piece of code, make it multi-platform, share across all these platforms, and check if the technology is a good fit for you or your company. If things don't work out, you can always say, no, I will go with native development, I will go with Flutter, React Native, or with something else. But if you like it, you can continue gradually refactoring your app. And here, and this is where Kotlin Multiplatform really, really shines.
Thank you, Yegor.
Let me also grab the mic for a moment here. So first, we'll also have a dedicated webinar, which will talk more about the advantages of Compose Multiplatform. I wanted to highlight just one of them, which is that if you start building an app from scratch today using Compose Multiplatform, and later down the line, you decide that you don't want shared UI, but you want to instead have native implementations on, for example, Android and iOS, we have really like graceful decomposition in that scenario, because your existing shared code base, which is Compose Multiplatform, already gives you a fully functional and native Jetpack Compose app for Android. So if you choose to go to native UI later on, then you would only have to add the Flutter part, so the iOS part using something like Swift UI.
It's good that we don't have the question, why should I choose Flutter over Compose Multiplatform and Kotlin Multiplatform? This is not for us to answer. We answered this way. So I think that we can mark it as done. Or at least for the second question, I would answer, don't know. So it is marked. The next question. Again, Flutter. Flutter moved away from ski render and created Impeller to solve the performance and app size issues. Compose Multiplatform still uses ski as its base for rendering. Are there plans to move away to another renderer just like Flutter did? Igor, do you want to highlight?
Yes. Well, the short answer is no. We don't have such plans, at least for the upcoming year. Our current priority right now is making Compose for iOS and Compose for web feature complete, and any activities that will require us migrating from one rendering engine to another will drastically slow down our progress in making the framework feature complete. So not for now, but we're also working hard on providing the great level of rendering performance on Compose for iOS. So give it a try, and if you feel that it is not as smooth as native apps, please let us know.
Thank you, Igor. I think we can mark it as Márton, do you want to read this one?
Yeah, so I, again, anonymous, feels like Kotlin multiplatform documentation is missing a chapter on CI/CD, deploying apps to the App Store, Microsoft Store, Play Store, etc. Can be trivial, I guess can be not trivial, especially setting up CI/CD, and some real-world examples would be amazing.
We can comment on it like, yes, we'll need to add it to our documentation plans. Does anyone want to?
I can just add one more thing to that yes, we will try to provide you with comprehensive documentation on all such topics, but with CI/CD specifically and real-world use cases, your input as community members is invaluable to us. Write an article about your experience with Kotlin multiplatform, how you have set up Bitrise or other CI/CD tools, which challenges you have encountered, and you will both contribute to the technology itself, because we are reading these articles very carefully every time, and you will also help your community members. So.
Yeah, thank you. Given the importance of testing in software development, what advancements can we expect in the testing infrastructure for Kotlin multi-platform projects, especially in ensuring consistency across platforms?
I can jump in. Right now, we are working on making Jetpack Compose testing API multi-platform, making it available not only for desktop apps, but also for iOS and eventually web. We hope to release this API in one of the next Compose multi-platform releases. Besides it, another item on our roadmap for Compose Multiplatform is integration with iOS accessibility features, which will essentially pave the road to integration with different frameworks for black box testing.
Thank you. I think we... Do you want to add anything? Nope. So, Márton, you want to?
Yep. What are the plans for integrating Kotlin Multiplatform with Swift Package Manager as opposed to CocoaPods?
Well, I can also jump in. I love talking about plans. Well, there are two sides of this story. The first one is about exporting Kotlin code to Swift. So currently, iOS developers integrate multi-platform frameworks either using CocoaPods or via manual setup. Both of these ways are not ideal. They have some UX issues, and besides it, we also know that CocoaPods is being slowly but steadily is being taken overtaken by Swift PM. So we are planning to eventually, and I hope soon, introduce support for exporting your Kotlin framework with Swift Package Manager instead of CocoaPods. So that's the first side of the story. The second side is about consuming Swift-only dependencies using Swift PM. Right now, we haven't started working on it. It's in our long-term roadmap. We'll eventually work on it, but not in the short-term future.
It's also worth noting that in general, with like feature requests and questions about plans, most of these things will be tracked on UTrack. So if you find these issues and you upload them, then that's like really valuable signal for us to prioritize. Of course, we'll also hear the questions here and see the upvotes and the Slido questions, but UTrack is what we look at a lot for feedback.
Hi, says us Anonymous. Can you provide real-world example to use Kotlin multiplatform for applications as well as backend? I can probably briefly comment on this one that we have a list of sample applications. They also, some of them also include backend, and also, for instance, Cater. If you're interested in using Cater for backend, there will be some examples showcasing exactly this use case. And as for real-world example, I think that there are many also from the community that showcases different stories. So it's like I think it's very much already there. Just check out samples.
And I can jump in and tell you what to look specifically. My favorite yoga application, Doc, actually uses Kotlin for all of its parts, mobile application as well as backend. It's on our case study page, as Sveta mentioned, so just look it up.
Okay, next one. In your opinion, what's the next biggest milestone for KMP, and what is the team focused on right now? I feel like this is another roadmap question, but also probably a question for everyone about what you're currently working on.
So I don't know, Dima, do you want to comment on this in terms of plans for core technology, for not for our other announcements, but what's on the radar?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I wanted to wait until someone gives Igor, for example, gives a high-level overview of what we're going, where we're going with Kotlin multi-platform. But let me start with the core technology. So core technology is stable in 1.9.20, as we are talking about this right now and right here. That being said, and as Márton and Sveta said in their presentation, some parts are still experimental. So that's one of the items on our roadmap, is to just make those parts stable as well. For example, expect actual classes. Also, we are actively looking into improving the experience of library developers. We kind of had to consciously deprioritize that part against experience of application developers before. So now we are kind of playing that tech debt and looking into the scenarios of developing libraries and how we can make life of our library authors more convenient. Specifically, for example, as one very specific example, maybe you heard about such a request that whenever you have a library that only writes common Kotlin code, it is very appealing case for us to optimize and make the development more convenient, make the publishing of such library more convenient, make it easier to compile without having a lot of machines like Windows, Linux, whatnot. So we are looking into that direction.
Who wants to add?
Well, I can probably add something. The first thing is that I definitely recommend you to check out the recent blog post in Kotlin blog called Kotlin Multiplatform Development Roadmap. Sveta highlighted it at the end of her presentation. It provides you like pretty high-level picture of what we are up to in JetBrains regarding further enhancements for Kotlin multiplatform. If we are speaking about my personal favorite, well, the first one is definitely making lives of iOS developers who work with Kotlin multiplatform more enjoyable. And of course, number one item here is direct Kotlin to Swift export. So just imagine you're writing a Kotlin multiplatform module, iOS developers take it from you, and they get an idiomatic Swift API. That would be really, really great if we can achieve it, and I hope we'll do it. So that's number one on my personal list. The number two is Compose for iOS, which we are aiming to promote to beta later next year. Well, it will also be quite a huge release with many, many goodies that we've prepared according to your feedback. And I think number three is tooling. Having a single IDE that will be perfect to work with Kotlin multi-platform, regardless of the specific platform that you are working on, has been on our list and on your list for a very long time. So, well, having Fleet as a stable technology with full multi-platform support is something that I personally I'm waiting for. And maybe Nastya or Florian can provide more details about what's up for tooling.
Yeah, I can jump in and say that, well, fleet support is number one on my list. I believe that after a long stabilization stretch, it's so good that we can finally focus on users' enjoyment and tooling features. We have a lot of exciting ideas. The one that will probably see the light of day next is previews. As you probably know, Compose framework in Android has this feature of previewing the components in a special window without the need to recompile the whole application. In Compose Multiplatform, in IntelliJ IDEA and in Android Studio, obviously this feature works for Android sources, and in IntelliJ IDEA, it works for desktop sources. What we want to achieve in Fleet, together with the Compose Multiplatform team, is to make this feature work across all of your multi-platform sources, especially the common ones. So imagine you have a Compose Multiplatform component in your common code, and if it's a composable, if you mark it with a special annotation, you have a gutter icon next to it, and as soon as you click on that gutter icon, your app is not compiling, but you can preview your component to do something with it. That would be really nice to have. If we're talking about my personal wish list long term, I would like to explore remote development possibilities for Fleet. Even today on the Slido, I have seen numerous questions about iOS development if you don't have a macOS machine. It's too early to tell if we will be able to implement something like that in Fleet, but the possibilities are rare, and that's exciting. Florian, what's your favorite Fleet feature that you would like to implement over the next year?
I mean, we're just at the beginning here, right? And so far the focus was to give like a first stable platform that already allows people to do so much with, but I think there are still many things that we can improve upon, trying to really get the collaborative workflows established. Similarly, I also think that by picking up here and there, by focusing on what specifically we can do to support the workflows around Kotlin multi-platform, we hope to make it less necessary to having to switch to Android Studio or to Xcode to do certain things, which currently we still need that for some things. But as I said, like this I think will make a huge difference by really focusing on this core workflow, these core use cases, being able to stay in Fleet and being able to enjoy all these great features that we have, the collaborative aspects there.
Okay, now somebody take us off the stage because we will make this webinar all about Fleet.
Okay, yeah, I want to actually ask Anton a similar question, but about Ampere. So it's like, what's the plans? What the biggest milestones for Ampere as you see it, other than making decision of for YAML, of course?
Yeah, thanks. So since Ampere is just announced and it's very experimental, my main wish is to get as much feedback as possible. And even though we have some ideas how to move forward, what things to design to implement, feedback will be crucial, and the plan will be heavily dependent on feedback what we are receiving, the request what we are receiving. Having said that, our main goal and our main roadmap for future is to make sure that we have great and smooth experience around the build tooling for Kotlin and Kotlin multi-platform, and provide great IDE on top of that. So these are our plans.
Thank you. So I think that probably we can move on with the questions.
Let me also highlight that Vlad responded to his own question on Slido and thanked everyone for especially the personal favorite features.
Okay.
We can proceed now.
Thank you. So the next question, are you planning any short-term solutions for Swift interoperability so we can use Swift-only libraries?
Yeah, I guess
shaking his head.
I can try answering that, and the answer is unfortunately no. We don't plan any short-term solutions for that. That being said, we are looking into direction of Swift interop. So maybe non-short-term solutions won't be as far as you think. That being said, if you find yourself in a situation where you have a Swift library and you really need to use that in your application, then you can benefit from Kotlin multi-platform feature of having being very close to native code. You can basically, what Kotlin does whenever you depend on Swift libraries, it is just automatic, or on Objective-C library, sorry, that is what is supported at the moment. It basically automatically generates Kotlin wrapper for you and the binding and plumbing code that binds those Kotlin wrappers to actual Objective-C implementations. So you can do that for Swift. We understand that it's not ideal solution and you would prefer to have an automatic tool like we have currently for Objective-C. We are looking into that direction, cannot promise anything at the moment, but at the very least, because the KMP is so close to native, you can basically do the same for yourself, write Kotlin interfaces, functions in Kotlin, and then implement them in a Swift code, which will play the whole kind of like a binding layer between the Kotlin API and the Swift library.
Thank you, Dima. Moving forward, there is the next question. I'm writing app from scratch, that is written in Kotlin Multiplatform and Compose, but I'm using external libraries that limit platforms that I'm able to support. Is there any way that IDE will resolve possible platforms for me or lacking support in libraries?
Again, I guess I can try answering. Like, I haven't got the situation entirely, so I apologize if I misunderstood something and we'll get something wrong. So I understood it in the following way. You are using some library which declared supports only, for example, iOS and Android. But your application is also compiled for, I don't know, Windows, for example, and library does not support that. And the question is, like, can we in Kotlin figure this out somehow and provide this support for the library? And the answer is unfortunately no, because like support of the library for a specific target requires some work and thought of the library maintainers put into that. They have to design the API for this specific target. They have to test it. They have to write actual implementations that might involve specifics of that platform. So in general case, that is not possible.
Thank you. Does anyone want to add anything?
I had also some kind of understanding of this question that's a little bit different from Dima's. And while what Dima said is right, if I understood the use case correctly, you want IDE to help you to pick a library that will be compatible with your project. And if that's the problem, if that's the use case, yes, we are going to implement some IDE features that will help you do that.
Thank you.
Next one then.
Yep.
Will there be any Kotlin certification?
I can briefly answer that. That I cannot answer that. That we are started to look into it, but it's too early to answer to promise anything. But if you're interested in it, please share with us your use cases, like why you need it for which goals. We are currently really interested in those.
Let me take the next one, which is a Compose question, which is about what about iOS look and feel in Compose Multiplatform? Is Material the only option? I believe we can say that. So currently, Material is what we have as part of published artifacts. You can, of course, always build your own theming on top of the lower layers of Compose. So building on just the foundation layer, which is unthemed essentially. And outside of that, you can also look at community solutions. So for example, we know that there is already at least one community library which aims to provide like this Cupertino look and feel on iOS and Material on other platforms. But yeah, those are the current options, and we're of course always looking into this and also really curious about what you would like to see. If you want the default iOS looks specifically, we've also heard people who want desktop specific themes, so all of that feedback is really useful.
The next question is very vague one, but still important. Which skills should a Kotlin developer focus on to enhance their ability in crafting more effective shared Kotlin multi-platform code? Who wants to share their opinion on this? Fast, because we don't have lots of time and we have many questions, but probably the essence.
Well, I can quickly jump in that crafting your multi-platform code is a little bit similar in some regard to crafting an SDK or a library. Like in a lot of our examples and tutorials, we compare the common code with some SDK or a library that is then consumed by iOS and Android application. So maybe that is the direction you would be interested in looking into. Like API design, compatibility, all this stuff.
And of course, if you're using Kotlin multi-platform for this native use case, check Kotlin Swift Encyclopedia to learn more about Kotlin Swift, how it currently works, and what are constraints, what are the options.
But in general, I saw that it is curious that we all struggle to say what specific skills are required for that. And I think it's not a coincidence, because it's not like it's some specific act. It's just like a framework, it's a technology, it's usual programming. You don't need to like learn something entirely new to use Kotlin multi-platform.
Yeah, if you're already a Kotlin developer, you start using Kotlin multi-platform, and suddenly it works, and it's all good. Yeah, I agree with this. Okay, the next question by Wojtek. Will be there support to compile Kotlin code for macOS, iOS from Gradle on Linux, Windows machine, maybe through some macOS host with SSH?
I can jump in here. In a sense, this question was already answered. So the topic is big and complicated. And we are looking at it, we are exploring our possibilities. We can't say any definitive for now, but as Dima mentioned earlier, what we will be focusing on in the near future is cross-platform, sorry for no pun intended, cross-platform experience for library authors. Because if you're a library author, if you're writing API that is common by its sense, it's a pity that you have to have a macOS machine, Linux machine, and Windows machine to properly test it. We would like to avoid this. As for iOS application development, things are a little bit more complicated there. We are looking into it, but can't promise anything yet.
Thank you, Nastya. The next one, Igor, do you want to promise the exact date when Compose Multiplatform files becomes stable?
You already know my answer. That no. Sorry, folks. I won't promise anything because any promises will eventually turn out against me. Yeah.
Just say months.
No, what I can say that we're definitely going to release beta version later next year. That one I can promise.
We can promise day of the month. Like most probably we're going to release it on 15th.
Yep.
On Wednesday.
On Wednesday. Yes. We're going to release it on Wednesday. Yes.
Definitely not Friday.
Yes, and not Saturday and Sunday. Okay, the next question. I don't know who wants to answer that. Probably Anton might lead some light. From what you showed, Andrew feels like Amber invents the wheel, which seems to be great on this case and doesn't bring anything new to the table. Prove him wrong. What did he miss? Tough question, but yeah, please highlight this.
Yeah, so like you see, we actually hear a lot of feedback from folks who are starting using KMP and not only starting using but experienced users. That the build setup is challenging. It's not only in build setup, it's also maintenance. And our goal, like with all the KMP story, but we are really focused on providing great and smooth experience and providing a great tooling on top of that, including IDE support. And with Ampere, we are focusing and exploring the improvement around the UX of build tool, the toolability in the IDE, we're providing out-of-the-box experience. And we are really eager to hear your feedback, where we actually hitting on the right sweet spot, where we actually improve the experience, actually improve the usability and onboarding for you, where we are making your use case better or not. If not, which are use case where you see you have friction with build setup, what's missing in the current design of Ampere. And depending on that, we'll decide how to go further, what things to improve. Again, our goal to make sure that you have great and smooth build tooling experience.
But such feedback is also helpful. So it's like that means we might do even better job of explaining all this stuff for you.
Can I quickly jump in?
Sure.
I promise I will be very quick about that. Like as a person who was doing a Kotlin multi-platform for quite a while, I really missed the ability to provide a lot of IDE support for whenever you redact your build Gradle files. And that provides some issues for us in Kotlin multi-platform. For example, whenever you declare a dependency to some library, as one of the previous questions mentioned, and this library doesn't support some of your targets, we in Kotlin multi-platform would like to display you like this small, nice yellow squiggly line and say, hey, this library does not have that target which you have in your project declared there, and provide a quick fix like you're used to working with your Kotlin code. So Emperor fundamentally approaches the design here by choosing the format which is well understandable by IT. And I, again, as a person who worked on Kotlin multi-platform, is very excited to see where it leads us.
Thank you, Dima, for this addition. Next, they changed so fast. Thank you for voting. Yeah, we probably will take 10 more minutes to answer the most voted question, because we cannot just leave you for too long. You all should have life, and also for the community groups that probably still watching us, you probably have some agenda. So let's take 10 more minutes and then going to finalize this. Again, new question. Is Fleet going to be free? I actually covered this in the webinar. It's like it's free only during this public preview for commercial use. Afterward, there will be some paid scheme, and pricing is still unknown. Most probably for non-commercial hobby development, educational purposes, Fleet will be provided for free. So there will be some free edition, probably some limitations related to remote collaborative development. So that's the current plan, but the exact pricing will appear later. It also depends on the Fleet team. I don't know, Florian, whether you want to add something here.
No, I guess not. This covers it from my side.
Good. Thank you. Then, have you tried to reach Apple? They would like to. Maybe they would like to support Kotlin as well as Google. Who wants to answer? Who has written emails to Apple?
It doesn't. I don't believe that it works this way. It won't work as if JetBrains comes to Apple and says, "Hey, let's support Kotlin as one of the languages to build iOS apps." No, just like with Google, it's up to you, the community. If you believe that it should be the case, if you want Apple to somehow highlight Kotlin, well, write about it, make blog posts, make talks, submit writers to the Apple team. So, and then eventually maybe it will happen.
So it's your responsibility, Andrei, to do this. Yes, and others. Yeah, but no, seriously, with Google, it actually happened this way. So it's like, it was not JetBrains who approached Google. It was just community who asked Google all the time all these inconvenient questions. Can we use Kotlin? And there was us like, you can, but it's not official support. Yeah, so it's like it was very much driven by the community. It's not that we can do lots of things here. The next question. Márton, do you want to read it?
Sure. So when will we be able to have composable previews within the common main source sets? It would be really useful for those who are sharing the UI across platforms. Tooling question.
Nastya already shared it. That is just, he wants it. She wants it. Yeah.
I can briefly jump in, as Nastya has mentioned to a previous question. This is something that we're currently looking at. We're trying to make this possible, and for exactly the reason you've stated, we think it would be a great addition to be able to develop cross-platform or multi-platform UI and be able to get quick feedback even when you're sharing something between platforms. So yes, this is definitely on our agenda.
Okay, we can mark it as the next question. Why is native desktop, meaning C language, is not an option to generate project in the new wizard?
I can jump in here. For the new wizard, we were focusing first and foremost on the most popular use cases, but it's not like we have released it and then forgotten about it for the whole eternity. We are constantly adding some new things here, new things there. For example, we will add some templates, we will add browser target, WASM target, and actually native desktop applications are on our list, but their priority will depend on your feedback. So share your use cases, folks, please.
Márton, do you remember the current state with multi-platform caching libraries?
I do not have an answer to that off the top of my head. I would go to the KMP awesome repo and check there for a library that would suit your needs. I'm also not entirely sure about what the question means by caching.
Yeah, because storage libraries are always available. So yeah, probably let's not spend our time of opening.
Yes, we have a bunch
awesome.
of different solutions for storage, for key value storage, for more structured things, for file storage. We have network libraries that have caching support. But yeah, check out KMP Awesome and look up libraries like that. Hopefully something will cover your specific use case.
Is there any plan to establish a comprehensive resource similar to Wiki for Kotlin Compose, where developers can find detailed documentation, best practice, and community contribute examples to facilitate learning and troubleshooting? We already have it to some extent with Kotlin Multiplatform portal, but the question whether we want to duplicate the whole Compose documentation is open to us, because now JetBrains Compose has an extensive documentation which you can read to actually learn the core concepts of the framework. Probably we'll find a solution to have something for Compose Multiplatform, but no specific plans yet.
Yeah, I think the new development portal is probably the answer to this. For samples, there's like a dedicated page there, including community contributed examples. Best practices should be covered there. So that's probably a good place to start.
Someone to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to point out that also the question has the part about this portal being community contributable or like being completely developed by community. So maybe someone wants to touch upon this part, because for example, for Kotlin website and Kotlin documentation, it is an open source and you can contribute to that. You can send a pull request and our team will review that.
Yeah, thank you for this important addition. The next question is, what's the plan with Compose HTML? It looks a bit neglected lately in favor of Compose for WASM. Person who is writing it says that they are looking to transition to Compose potentially.
Well, I can answer. Compose HTML is a kind of a side library for Compose Multiplatform. Well, it's there. We plan to support it and maintain it. But it's true that the current focus of the team regarding the overall web scenario is on Compose for Web over WASM.
Thank you, Igor. Let's probably take 3 more questions in order not to use too much of your time, and answer those. And we'll try to provide questions to most common answers to most common questions afterwards as well. So the next question, with Kotlin Multiplatform reaching its stable release and introducing alpha support for iOS, could you elaborate on the anticipated challenges in terms of cross-platform compatibility and performance optimization? Igor, probably it goes as for you as well.
Sorry, I was kind of distracted. One moment.
The challenges are anticipated.
Well, I really don't have any specific comments here. What we are working on in Compose for iOS, one of the directions we're working on is providing iOS like feel for some of the core components and behaviors. For example, scroll view. If you, all iOS users are kind of used to how scrolling lists behave. They know what will happen if they have something scrollable. They will drag their finger on it, and they understand how these physics work. So that's why we, right from the start, we understood that we can't just take lazy lists from Jetpack Compose and use exactly the same physics on iOS. We had to replicate the overscroll effect, other physics effects. We did it in the latest release, 1.5.0. So if you haven't tried it yet, please try it. Besides scrolling, we're also trying to make text editing experience very close to native. For example, we have I don't remember, probably 30 pages long design document of how text field in Compose for iOS should behave in very different scenarios to resemble a native one. For example, how it should behave when you drag your finger, when you operate with a physical keyboard, when you do some weird stuff with text selection. We have it covered. We are working on it. So if you think that something else should also be supported, I mean that we should support other iOS-like behaviors in Compose, please post a ticket on GitHub. We'll closely evaluate it.
Thank you. The next question, I can probably start commenting on that. Does iOS target in Kotlin Multiplatform fully support coroutines? So it's like their question, the answer is like to fully, I would say that not fully in terms of user experience, but you already can use it without troubles. So there are two things to know about. At first, currently, you can only run coroutines from iOS on the main thread. However, there is that's connected to the old memory manager. But there's already an option to disable this behavior and let them be run on any thread. And this behavior is expected to become the default in the future. So yeah, please, in your projects, you can try this option. You can find it in the docs, so it's just the compiler option, and try using it and share with us the feedback that it works good for you. And the other side of the story is this Kotlin Swift interoperability and how Kotlin API with coroutines is accessible from Swift side. Currently, the recommended way is use one of the two libraries that really improve the experience here inside Sky or KMP native coroutines. With either of these libraries, it becomes very much straightforward because without these libraries, you need to kind of create your own tiny libraries, especially for flows, which is the solution that some teams follow, that some teams do that, but for newcomers especially, it's just easier to run one of their community solutions. And of course, Kotlin to Swift direct interoperability will address this. So it's like when it's available, you can you can use this direct way to use coroutines from Swift. So it works, but there are some nuances that I mentioned.
Last question.
Yeah, let's do last. Thanks you, Márton, for actually counting the questions, because it's like, how many did I promise? 3? How are we? So okay, last question. Okay, what is this? This one. Márton, do you want to read it?
So in the case of encountering difficulties while configuring a KMP project in Gradle, especially for a setup that includes Android, iOS, and web applications, which resources would you recommend for guidance and troubleshooting? I think primarily we would recommend the Kotlin Lang documentation. We have a page titled Hierarchical Project Structure, which shows you how to use the default hierarchy as well as how to do manual configuration for like full flexibility of which targets you use and how they depend on each other. I don't know if we have any other specific tips, like maybe channels that help with debugging. Anyone?
Googling. You can Google an error and see what comes out.
It was mentioned before, but maybe I can also quickly pitch again the wizard that we developed, which is kmp.jetbrains.com. So depending on what kind of project you want, you can use this as a starting point, and hopefully it helps resolve some of the issues that people run into when trying to configure their projects. We are also looking at ways we can help with this from the IDE side, but it's too early to share anything here yet.
And for the most complicated questions, there is always Kotlin Lang Slack and I think multi-platform channel. Folks there are quite responsive and happy to help.
Yeah, and actually I would like to add that you can also ask a question in UTrack. Some people are very concerned about that. They think like they distract the team or they will look stupid. That's not the case. We are here to support you, and it is absolutely fine to ask a question in UTrack, get an answer, and get that issue closed. And actually that makes some people happy because they are getting the tick that they closed the issue.
Yeah, so please share with us any troubles you might experience. We'll try to help. And also, I think that Kotlin community is very welcoming in terms of providing some guidance, some tips in Kotlin Lang Slack. There is lots going on. So it's like whenever you share, I see there are lots of responses. It was like with tips and comments on how to set it up. So if you are, for some reason, are not already there, join Kotlin Lang Slack. That's a good idea to do. So I think that we are very close. Thank you, especially for those who survived this whole Q&A session. It was probably a bit long, but we hope that we answered your questions, specifically most voted ones, the things that interested you the most. So I'm very grateful, and especially very grateful for those user groups who was with us live. And I don't know whether you're still there, but for those who are still with us, thank you a lot, and thank you for everyone. So I think that we can finalize this. Do you want to say any final words to our community? Some, I don't know, guidance, tips? Use Kotlin multi-platform.
And Compose Multiplatform. And Emperor. And Fleet.
Yeah, and please,
most importantly, tell us
share
what you
feedback.
think. Yeah, share your feedback. Because we're trying to build great products, and it's only with your voice that we are able to do this. So thank you for everyone who's already used the different ways to get in touch with us, be it the UTrack tracker, be it via Slack messages, and please keep them coming because feedback is invaluable for us, and it's critical so that we can build the right thing.
Yes, there is one very specific area of feedback that makes the whole team like incredibly happy. It is when you come to us and share about your production use cases of Kotlin multiplatform, of Compose multiplatform. Your stories, well, they really inspire us a lot. So if you haven't gotten in touch with us, please do it. So
yeah, thank you all for joining us today. And see you soon in 2 days, actually. Next webinar. See you. Bye-bye.